Votes. I'm based in Houston. Oh, thank you. No, you're good. I'm based in Houston. I oversee the Houston Faith Votes Project. I also work with the North Texas Faith Votes group and kind of the larger umbrella of Texas Faith Votes. I'll go into a little bit more detail about those opportunities and the ways to plug in at the end of the morning's presentation, because I want us to now launch into the whole area of the constitutional amendments. So, first of all, I got to applaud and congratulate Arapaho and thank Arapaho for pulling this together. And also you. I mean, my goodness, how sexy a topic is the constitutional amendments, digging deeper. Yeah, sign me up, you know. You are a rare breed among the voters of Texas. So kudos, hats off to you all for really stepping up and taking the interest in getting a deeper understanding, or maybe we should say a broader understanding of what these are all about. Because I have been going around kind of preaching the fact that this is a high-stakes election to people who don't normally think of constitutional amendments as high-stake elections, but it really is. Number one is it is a great trial run for all of us in congregations who have get-out-the-vote efforts to do for the primaries coming up in March. So you can think of this November election as, let's see how our tactics and techniques are working in our congregations to getting folks out to vote. Now, raise your hand if you are a part of a congregation who has an effort to get out the vote. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, great. And if you don't know and you haven't raised your hand, then it's not too late. In fact, the time is perfect now to start working on how do you initiate efforts in your congregation, and we can talk. Okay. So let me get going here on the slide. That, by the way, the person who is narrating the video is B. Moorhead, who's the executive director of Texas Impact. Texas Impact is the oldest faith-based advocacy group in Texas, nonpartisan interfaith advocacy group. It's 50 years old. And she is a force of nature and probably one of just the most insightful and able political kind of strategist and helper to help for congregations and people of faith to think about our role in nonpartisan politics. She's a marvel. So I highly encourage you to check out texasimpact.org. We are a member-based organization, kind of like NPR and all those wonderful public entities where we really depend and thrive with membership, individuals and congregations. So here we go. For our discussion today, I'd like to keep it kind of conversational, because in any room like this where I am, there's always people who know more than I do about certain things. And so as a way to really let's make sure the wisdom is really shared. Let's keep it conversational. But I also want to not go number 1 to 17, and we just drill on each of those. That would be incredibly time consuming and ultimately end us in a place of more confusion than we probably are now. But instead, the approach I want to take is to look at them in terms of the background and the context. And also that there are certain categories or buckets that these constitutional amendments fall into as a way to organize our thinking about them. And then, of course, sharing the wisdom. So just in terms of some context. Sorry, I'm trying to do this 2 different ways. So in Texas, citizens cannot initiate ballot initiatives. It has to come through the legislature. So only the Texas legislature can propose constitutional amendments. That goes through the legislative process. So we saw in the last regular session, The bills, the enabling legislation that then led to the joint resolution, either the Senate or the House joint resolution, that then had to pass with a supermajority. I forget, what is it, like 2/3? What is it? Do I have it on here? Well, I'll have it on there. It's not a simple majority that passes in order to get on the ballot for November. And so then it goes to us as the citizens, and then we just, a simple majority among the voters is what then will make it into a constitutional amendment. So the legislators, they opt to embed many changes into the Constitution. Why? Because when there is simple legislation, it's easier to change than if it's in the Constitution. The text, it is basically harder to roll it back, and so if the legislators want to embed something that will have a longer lifespan, and really be very difficult to change, it behooves them and their issue to get it into the Constitution. The last point, it gives legislators the power to offload the final say on certain issues of their choosing. So, you may recall, those of you that followed the legislature, we wanted them to put before the voters the issue of vouchers. But no, that wasn't gonna, that didn't happen. But for certain issues that we'll be discussing, then that does become something that we'll let the voters decide. And just a little bit on a philosophical point to see how, because there are 17 constitutional amendments. That's the most constitutional amendments on the ballot that we've had since 2003. And a lot of us ask the question, a lot of you probably ask the question, why so many? What is going on where we have to now kind of dig down into these very subtle and complicated and complex issues and try to understand them so we know what is the responsible way to vote? And I think it really does speak to the consternation, the lack of political functionality that we see in the legislature now, the acrimony, the tension, just the conflict. So if they can get something, that we then have to, weigh in on and vote, it really is a way kind of putting into our hands something that we would hope could be handled legislatively, because that's, they have access to a lot of research and a lot of testimony, a lot of expert that we as ordinary citizens don't have, or that we really have to dig deeply to get. And that's why events like this and your willingness to be here are so important. So we'll just kind of say that. And just to give you a sense of the Texas Constitution is relatively easy to amend. Oh, here it is, the 2/3 supermajority. So that was 100 House votes and 21 Senate votes that the legislation had to have in order to pass. So the U.S. Constitution has been amended 27 times since 1787. So 27 amendments in about 200 years, as opposed to the Texas Constitution that has 528 amendments since its adoption just 100 plus years ago, 150 years ago. So, that's just it's just a statement on this isn't all that unusual, and it's just the nature of the Texas Constitution. Oh my goodness. Let me see. That's not where I wanted to go. Okay. Well, while you're waiting for this to happen, you can scan that if you want. Okay, let's see.
Could we ask the people online to mute themselves, please?
Kathy, here we go.
You're not prepared.
Okay, here we go. These are the buckets. So the buckets that we're going to be looking at: tax relief. I like to call them tax cuts. So these are the propositions of 2, 5 through, and you do have, everybody have these on your table. Make sure you have, this is what's actually going to be on the ballot. This is the language. So make sure you're cross-referencing with this paper. There are some propositions 3 and 12 that are going to be addressing the judiciary. There are propositions 1, 4, and 14 that have to do with dedicated funds. And then the last category that we're looking at, parental and voting rules, the proposition 15 and 16. So again, for each measure, a simple majority of the votes will then make them become a part of the Texas Constitution. Okay, let's see how I can do this. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to go back. Yeah, I'm trying to go back to that one. You can't get back either? Yes. There will be a recording, and I can email the slides. That would, if that'd be helpful. Yeah. So sorry. Okay. So here are some questions that I think we as people of faith can ask ourselves in terms, as we're thinking about all of these tax cuts that we're about to be looking at first. It's important for us to be able to hold the big picture. What is really going on here? Who or what is being served by this tax cut? And does this tax system reflect what's compassionate, what's sensible, what's best for all? What is the common good being served? Because as you'll see, when we start going into them, we can get very laser focused. And it can, debating the pros and cons of each, and pros and cons of this one, and pros and cons of this one. It's like, okay, but let's step back and really look at the philosophy, what we're really doing. And that's the attitude of mine I'm suggesting here. Okay, so Proposition 2 bans capital gains. Proposition 5 exempts animal feed from property tax. So basically, there's a way in which the realized or unrealized. 3. The 5. Sorry. To exempt ad valorem taxes on tangible personal property benefits kind of ranchers and basically it's giving a tax break to that. Volunteer Proposition 6 blocks occupation tax on securities and transactions. Basically cuts taxes for. Have you heard about the Y'all Street, the Texas Stock Exchange now? So there's tax cuts embedded in those occupations and different elements of that. 7 is lets the spouse of veterans keep homestead property tax exemption. Proposition 8 bans the inheritance taxes, or so-called death taxes. And 9 exempts equipment from ad valorem taxes. Okay, so, yeah. So here's the question that I want to bring up for all of this. Is what do we believe about taxes, and what is the fair and common good approach to them? Because we know there are certain tax breaks for different groups. There's certain entities and professions and all kinds of things. But every time we vote for tax cuts, somebody pays. Who are some of those somebodies? Schools, healthcare, infrastructure, police departments, anything that gets state funding, right? When the pot is shrunk in any way, there's less. It's just common sense. Now, that's not to say that all of these are necessarily a bad idea at all. There are certain, because there's even more. Let me go to the next slide. There's more. They didn't all fit on one slide. Yeah. So we in Houston, we did a meeting with Senator Betancourt's staff, and basically he was telling us that, hang on, I want to get back to the slide on that many of these came from their constituents. And he said, oh, this one, Proposition 10, creates a temporary property tax exemption when a house has been burned down. Because somebody says, well, I'm paying taxes on a structure, a value of a piece of property, of a structure that's not there anymore. Well, that makes sense. You shouldn't have to do that. And then somebody in a group that we were meeting with said, well, what about houses that flood? Or what about houses that just, for whatever, have mold? Or what about houses that, so do you see how it's like you can go in just a million different directions? What makes total sense, if you don't step back and look at the bigger picture, it just adds texture and nuance to the question, you see? Number 11, expands homestead exemption for elderly and disabled. Okay. Well, how did the elderly, and on the surface, they're like, yes, we're called by our faith to stand up for the elderly and disabled, And then it's like, well, okay, then what constitutes disabled, and what about what elderly? Are we talking low-income elderly, or just because you happen to hit 65? Or whatever, you see? Yeah, it's very nuanced and complicated, but when it's in the Constitution, it becomes a very hard thing to change, to tweak, to go back and fix any unintended consequences. Now, if they were able to solve it or address it just in regular legislative process, then the next session they can go back and tweak it. They do it all the time. They see what unintended consequences they may experience from the laws that were passed, and they go back and fix them. But when you're talking about a constitutional amendment, it's kind of a different story. Raising the homestead exemption from $100,000 to $140,000. Again, cool. Who pays? Is that going to mean less money for our public schools or any number of other infrastructure and all that? And then the 14, allow property in border counties to receive a property tax exemption for letting their property be used to build the border wall. Or other ways to support immigrant, what do they call it? Border security, infrastructure, and related improvements. Yeah. I just happened to note it. I didn't happen to notice. I dug into it a little bit. I'm in Senator Alvarado's district. She's my senator, and I asked I called her office and I said, can you give me Senator Alvarado's record voting on all these? How did she come down on all these constitutional amendments? Which I would suggest all of you do. It's just a quick, friendly phone call. Just call your representatives and say, I'm curious how my representative voted on these. And this was the one that she voted no on, 17. It was kind of surprising to me that she voted yes on all the others, but be that as it may, that was just one thing. I just want to share that. We've also done some meetings. Well, I'll get to the others when they come up, with other meetings with other representatives. So let's see if are there anybody want to dig a little deeper on any of this category? Because again, we can talk in depth about it to some degree, but what I really want to do is give you the context by which to think about these, because it does no good if we have to basically what we're learning as citizens is how should we be looking at this? Because we can't just dig deep every single time. We got to get a framework of how do we think about it. Yes?
I have a question. That is, some of these that are already lost, given opportunity about increasing the exemption, how can we find out how that affects the state budget financially?
Okay, the question was, how do we find out how these affect the state budget financially? For example, 13, that raises the homestead exemption. So one possibility would be to look at the fiscal note of SJR2 Because anytime there's a piece of or it's enabling legislation, if there is some. So you Google Texas Legislature Online. If you don't know this website, write it down. It's one to bookmark. Texas Legislature Online. And then you can type in the bill number, in this case, SJR 27 or 2, if you're talking about 13. That's why we put these on here. The SJR stands for Senate Joint Resolution. HJR is House Joint Resolution. And you can click on the little tabs beside it, and then they often have a fiscal note. And that's where they're supposed to tell us what is the fiscal fallout of that, or the cost, not fallout, cost. Yeah. And also, you can always, I really want to underline this, you can always call the author of the bill and ask that very question. You don't have to, this is one thing I want us all to really deeply internalize this message, is that they are human beings who you are in relationship with, whether they're your representative or not. They are our representatives, and they have staff, they have phone numbers, they have office hours, and they are here for us. And they usually like these kinds of questions. At least they seem to. I mean, as long as you're not a jerk about it, hey, I don't like this. What do you, but just, hey, I'm curious. And they'll answer that. So, yeah. Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you. Yes, for the particular school district, that's a good point. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Yes. Wait, let me reflect that, because I don't think the Zoom people heard that. She said call the particular school districts, because that's where the impact, if that's what you're asking, will be felt for property taxes, for Prop 13. Yeah, thank you. Yes, ma'am. I don't really know the most direct route, because there are, like I said earlier, do you have to call, I don't know, does anybody know? The county? Yes, Kathy? I can reflect it. Hang on. Hold on. You call your city, your municipality, they should be able to tell you. For example, Kathy knows that the police department impact would be $1.4 million. Was there more? Okay. Okay, just that example. Yeah. Again, it requires a lot of persistence and digging. That's why it's really good to do that in community, in your congregation, so it's not on one person, and share what you find out. Yes, ma'am. Anybody from Garland ISD? Yes. Let me reflect that, because the Zoom people, she got a letter from Garland ISD, a very good letter, saying that it will impact these children in Garland Independent School District. How could it not, right? And that's what I'm kind of trying to say, is all of this there's somebody that pays. Yes, sir. Okay, the question was, we're really not going to go through and say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, like that. the purpose of today is to set you up to get the tools to do that for yourselves. That was the question. And the answer is, yeah, sort of. And I'll tell you why. I'm not being cagey. I just want to, Texas Impact does not take a position on these. So I can't tell you yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. There are lots of groups out there that can and are League of Women Voters, editorial boards. There's a really conservative group called True Texans. There's a lot of think tanks that will tell you, if you Google, how should I vote on the constitutional amendment, you can find any number of people that are willing to tell you how to do that. I would look at the League of Women Voters. I would pay attention to your editorial boards and your newspapers. And so there's the answer to that one. I'm trying to encourage us in a certain direction that just don't be swayed necessarily without understanding the bigger implications. I know, that's disappointing, isn't it? You wanted a yes, no, yes, no. Okay, afterwards, I'll tell you how I'm going to vote on these. Yes, sir.
So if they're taking it from 100,000 to 140,000, right, for the exemption, and let's just say the average price of the house is 400,000.
Okay.
That's 10%.
Peanut. Is that your point?
Yeah, no, but it's 10% removed from the taxations that support education.
Exactly.
Can the education department afford a 10% hit?
There you go.
So there's your
So if you value public education, if you think public education is getting the short end of the stick and everybody is dipping into that fund for every reason, then you're going to want to vote no on these tax breaks. If that's your highest priority, then, or even one of the top three, okay, then there's your answer. If you really think that you should not have to pay for taxes on a structure that is burned down, and that's one of your highest priorities, then you're going to vote yes on that one. So there, it requires us to get clear on what matters to us. And that, my friends, is a very good thing. Yes, Kathy? Please. Oh, gee, I should know that. I don't know that, actually. Do you, Marilee? Do you know when? Oh, the question was, if passed, when do these take effect? I think, wait, go ahead. We'll Google it, or anybody, they can Google it. That's an easy Google question. Okay. Okay. Passing a certain. Oh. Yeah. So I did a little digging on that one, and I don't know enough about the Texas Stock Exchange to really know what positions that would, and maybe somebody does. You have? Oh, good.
basically what it's going to do is they have transaction fees.
Hey, there are transaction fees.
Whenever they move something from somewhere else in the district that they do commodities, well, they have a fee there. They don't want to be taxed on that fee. That's that.
Okay.
So even if it's like 2 cents per dollar of moved goods, they don't want to be taxed on that 2 cents. They're also moving millions and millions of dollars. So you can see how it adds up.
It's a.
They have the same problem. That they're always. That's why you get those unrealized dividends and all that stuff. That's all part of it. But they do try to. Oh, sorry.
Well, let me reflect a little bit of that and tell me if I'm getting it right. Essentially, this is a subsidy for the Texas Stock Exchange. So all of these transactions that would happen, those are what's not going to get taxed. Like a sales tax, let's say. You know, if we buy something, we're taxed on that. But this is going to get an exemption. So if we believe that we are so glad the Texas Stock Exchange is coming to Texas and we want to encourage that and we want to pay for it, that's what then you would vote yes on that. But if you think, heck no, they should pay their own taxes too, they're going to be making so much money off Texas, then you would vote no on that. Is that helpful? Okay. Thank you. Any other questions before we move on to the next bucket? Yeah, Kathy. Hold on, folks. I can't hear her. Okay.
We're getting some questions online about, does Texas even have that type of tax, like the capital gains tax?
Not currently.
Texas doesn't currently have a tax. So to vote for an amendment not to have a tax makes that in perpetuity.
That's,
Doesn't affect anything today.
yes. That's a very important thing to get. I wonder if the folks on Zoom heard that. There are a lot of these things. Okay, but did they hear that? So and the same, I think it's the same with the death tax, to the inheritance tax. Do you notice, well, anyway, that's beside the point. Why it's called the death tax instead of an inheritance tax is to make it sound like a really bad, nasty thing, you know. But so for inheritance taxes and estate taxes, again, it's solidifying in a constitution what could just be a law that has more flexibility. But if you're a party, if you've got a lot of power right now, you want to solidify your power in as deep a way as possible so that it's harder to change, knowing that you may not be in power forever, right? So that's what, and I'm, both parties do it. It's not, it's just done. So that's why we as the voters need to be aware and just have a healthy dose of skepticism about this stuff. Okay, we need to move on, y'all. And I'd love to continue this, but there's a lot of other interesting things to talk about. Oh. Is that where we are? Let's see. Are we on the judiciary? Oh, we're on dedicated funds. Hang on. Okay. The dedicated funds for Texas State Technical College infrastructure and other workforce education capital needs, dedicated a portion of the sales tax to the Texas Water Fund, and the establishment of the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas. Okay. So this bucket, and I went ahead and told you that this had, is that what we're on? Yeah, okay, the third one just didn't fit on that slide. This bucket is about, again, having dedicated funds that don't have to be renewed by the legislature all the time. So, I'll tell you some comment. We met with Representative Morales Shaw. Her comment about number one, the Texas State Technical College Fund, is that it seems a little preferential. Why them and why? Although a lot of people think it's a very good idea. Again, I'm encouraging us to think more broadly about the whole notion of it. And here's what to look at about that one, is it brings up the whole point, or the whole question of what happens with post-secondary education and job training. What are some of the other possibilities? If we go ahead and have this dedicated fund, so for example, all the university systems have the land grants, right? The permanent fund. That's how they're funded. Community colleges are taxing entities. They can raise their money through taxing. But these vocational type technical schools, they don't have either of those options. And so here is a fund that would be dedicated to this one. What it doesn't bring up is, well, what about unions who have apprenticeship programs? What about, do we want to work on post-secondary kind of training programs in partnership with our community colleges, who in a large part have taken that up? Do we want to work on secondary curriculum and make trades and skills more of a part of our secondary? I mean, it just brings up all kinds of issues. So again, I know. So again, it's like, it's so complicated. How are we supposed to know? So it's a way to get clear then on, well, I can just see us as congregations sitting down and having those conversations. Well, what about our kids? Are there some of the kids in our congregations that aren't going to go to college? And how do we want to see that they're prepared for living wages? And it's making it local, making it real, not voting on it in the abstract, but as much as possible, making it real. Then let that guide our votes. Let that guide our conversations. Okay, that's long term. We've got 3 weeks before the election. Getting to this gentleman's question. So how am I supposed to vote on this? And the answer is, I don't know. But be aware that there are some really good people who think this would be a very good idea, and there are some who think maybe not. Do you see how hard it is to make decisions in a vacuum? So if this session is a commercial for anything, it's a commercial for getting with others in your congregation and having these conversations. Yes, ma'am. Where would the funds come from? Yeah. I don't know where the funds are coming from in any of these dedicated funds. The general, yes. Did they say that on those? Yeah. Okay, so she says nothing she has seen has said where the funds come from. So again, that would be a phone call to the author of the bill or your own representative who had to have voted one way or the other on this. Yeah. And if it says sales. And the thing on the water, I want to make a comment about the water, because in our conversations and listening and talking to our colleagues, Sierra Club and other environmental climate people, what they're saying about this one is it's good, it's too little, but it's good. Now in this case, having a dedicated fund would be something that we could see as very supportive. Because if you believe that water, for example, is a long-term issue that shouldn't be bantered about session by session, then we want a dedicated fund so we don't have to keep fighting this. So it is worth pulling money out of whatever source it is, because it's such a serious issue facing the state. I'm sorry? Oh.
The one constant to these two
Yeah.
are battery manufacturing and server farms. The one constant with both of these is battery manufacturing and server farms. They use a lot of water, and they're all in rural areas. So what this is tax-funded infrastructure for the Elon Musks, the Bezoses and all those guys.
Not for homes. And yet you can then wonder, well, if they don't get it, they're going to get it somewhere else. Do you see what I mean? It's like, can this in any way protect those homes, those neighborhoods that are being sucked dry? I mean, it's a rugged place, y'all. Are we getting that? If nothing. Yeah. Okay. And then, let's see. Let's go to the judicial ones. Let's see what's next up here. Let's see. Yeah, but I want to go to one right before that. There he goes. Okay. So this one requires judges to deny bail in certain felony cases where prosecutors show the suspect poses a flight risk or danger to the community. Okay, yes. Oh, yes. What was that? Oh, before we forget it, the dementia one, can we talk about that? Yes. What was that, Kathy? Oh, okay. So yes, thank you. That was the third dedicated fund one. Again, there were some questions about, so here's what I've heard. Some people, like Representative Thompson, who I highly respect, she said, this is like a dream. That's what she's quoted. This is a dream come true to have something like this. And there are others who have heard other things that, no, it's really like a giveaway, or that was what was some people's response. But the others, why in Midland? Why is it, where's it going to be built? Is this sort of a handout? What's going on there? And again, unless or until we dig deeply and find out, how different people voted and where you stand on it, where they stand on it, again, we could go either way. There are pros and cons to everything. If you think this is a very important issue, and even if there's some pork in this fund, it's worth it, then you would want to vote yes on it. If and if you don't, then you say no, dedicated funds are pulling from the common good, and it's not worth it, then you would vote no on it. But it's something that we each have to, either individually or as a small community, kind of look at together. And again, as I started out with, I don't know all the facts on any of these. I've done some digging. Others in the room also have done a lot of digging, and so we're just sharing the wisdom of the room. So Marilee, did you want to say something on this one? Because this is the one we had started talking about, but the dementia research. You want to speak up into here? Come on back. Well, but see, the people on Zoom can't hear. Yeah, sorry.
So for me, the one on the dementia one, I really need to go back and look and see who the bill author is. I have some suspicions about it. So I want to know who the bill author is. And then I have heard from different people that the research facility is going to be out there in the middle of nowhere, not near a university, not near a major hospital system. So just the paranoid person in me, I just wonder whether or not it's a giveaway. Now, that just because I wonder doesn't make it true, but I think with all of these bills, it's really good to just go back and look who authored the bill, who voted for it, and look at both sides and just really dig, because these things are really hard to figure out. I spent 3 weeks so far, working on every one of these, and they're just complicated. So the dementia one, I don't know, but I'm wondering about the motives.
You're willing to what?
About the motives.
Yeah, wondering about the motives. Yeah. Yes.
I'd like to say that this is pretty much going into what you and Marilee said about how we need to educate ourselves. And again, picking up on one of your earlier lines, if you're concerned about people with dementia and want the state of Texas to take better care of it, they don't need a constitutional amendment to do that.
Right.
They can pass legislation providing water and technical education. They don't need amendments for that.
Yep. Okay. I want to reflect some of that for our people so if you believe in dementia, not to believe in dementia, if you believe that the state of Texas needs to take better care of people with dementia, if you believe there should be, better care for our water, if you believe in anything, we don't need a state constitution amendment to do that. It can all happen through the legislature. Yes.
I'm a nurse, and I would say also, we have a give them back that so that in the research institutions in our cities, we have plenty of input and people available.
I love it. Okay. There are already institutions doing this kind of research in blue cities that this money is being taken away from them. And so we can advocate more, not there, but put it back into those who are already established in doing the research. Yeah.
If we haven't fired them all.
If we what?
If we haven't fired them all.
Yes, if we haven't fired them all. Okay, I just had to take a step back and talk about the process of what's going on here right now. This is the kind of conversation that needs to happen regularly in our communities of faith. And so I hope you're enjoying it and like getting into it a little bit and hopefully getting your mind expanded like, oh my gosh, it is complicated. Yeah, there are always two sides to everything. And because this is us, what this is us growing up as citizens. Now, we wish we had a bunch of grown-ups in Austin that could deal with this. And in lieu of that, we have to be the grown-ups. Oh, I started to tell you about a really neat story that I was listening to a book by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen Buddhist holy and wise man. And the novel was called The Novice. And in it, they told a story about how a whole big pile of salt got added. When it gets added to water, it makes it poison. If the container of water is just like a pitcher of water and you add all this salt to it, it's poison. It can't be used for anything good or it will kill anything that touches it or drinks it. So what do? You can't take the salt out of the water. But what you can do is you add a lot more water. And it dilutes the container, it dilutes the salt, and makes it life-giving again. Makes the water life-giving again. So friends, in this analogy, we are the water that is being added to the salt water. You see? We've got a really tough situation politically in our state and in our country. And I am among the first to be angry and disillusioned and disappointed and pissed off and all that. But at the end of the day, if we want a different situation, then it's up to people like us who are willing to spend a Sunday afternoon having this conversation to dilute the negative and bring back the life-giving qualities of our democracy. Yes, ma'am.
So we as churches, I wonder if St. Paul United Methodist Church.
Hang on. Do you understand this? People on Zoom can't hear the acoustics in the room. So.
I'm Sharon Spratt, St. Paul United Methodist Church. I'm posing this question to you. We as church people, I feel like we need an expert on all 17 amendments or however many they are, okay? Because if I call a meeting at the church to discuss it, we have to have somebody there who's present, who has either studied it like he has, or several others of you, because I had studied dementia and was convinced because of family members that I needed to vote for that. I was telling everybody until I've dug down deeper. And now I'm not so sure. So what's your response to that?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I have done a lot of looking for that expert too, because I knew I wasn't that person. I don't think that expert on 17 amendments exists. That is the hard truth. I kind of feel like, well, maybe Texas Impact should be that expert. I should be that expert. I can't. Now, that doesn't mean that together we're not the experts. I believe my answer to that question is, y'all, it's community. That's where we're going to find the expertise, I should say, is within us. Okay, that's one answer to the question. The part B answer is that we have to grapple with uncertainty. This is something that y'all watching the legislature, I've watched hours and hours of the hearings of the legislature and the regular session. And the one truth that kept hitting me in the face was that, my God, nobody knows for sure. That is a rough place to be when there is no definitive answer, because you have at least half the country that are going to feel this way and at least half the other half feeling the other way. And so as people of faith who adhere to at least many of us, if not all of us in this room, adhere to this story, this crazy story that we've read that says the left hand can't say to the right hand, I don't need you. And the head can't say to the foot, you don't matter. They have to grapple with the whole. In Eastern traditions, they say there's no such thing as an individual. We are all one. And if there's anything that we are getting the opportunity to look at in our country is, oh my God, how do you be a people in that way when some people are so completely different than us? So let me finish with this one question and then go to you. So when you get at St. Paul's, when you get back with your group at St. Paul's, I would suggest you start it the same way I started this, with saying, I'm not the expert, there's wisdom in the room, we're going to do our best, and we're going to grapple with this, because that's what we're called. We're not called to have all the answers and to vote perfectly. That's not what any of our faith calls us to, is to make sure you vote the right way. What we're called to is to live our faith and to as best we can, and to step up and explore that. So, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to play off of her.
Sure.
I'm hearing a lot. It kind of reminds me, and I'm not trying to get on national politics, but when they were talking about the big, beautiful bill and how great it was going to be and how it was going to lower taxes and, everything was going to be all beautiful. And then other people said, wait, there are going to be people hurt by this. We need to look at who's hurt and who's helped by this and figure out if this is really what we want. And for a lot of people, the answer was no, even though the bill got passed, and that's why we have shut down now. But it seems to me like this is kind of what we're doing. We're looking at the other side of the big beautiful bill. No, it's not big. It's going to hurt one.
Exactly. So just to reflect a little of that. So this process and this ballot is our opportunity. It's kind of like looking at the big, beautiful bill. Okay, we looked at it. We saw some people are going to get hurt, some aren't. They say, and it turns out they are. And now what do we do about it? And we're looking at it, we're talking about it. And that's really what we're at. And if we have the power and the votes, we can stop it. And if we don't, we can't. And then what does that mean for us as people of faith? When the train is still going down on that track, even if at our best, deepest conscience level, we know this is a really harmful thing. How are we going to be there in love and faith and compassion if the train steamrolls us over, right? That's then the follow-up for that. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so the judges thing. Judges can deny bail in terms of in very serious criminal cases, and revision of the structure and authority of the State Commission on Judicial Conduct. There's about to be next week a very good Substack article, because I just wrote it and it's in the process of being published. So go to Texas Impact. In fact, there is also a Substack, and I'm about to show you the link here at the end of this presentation, where you can read on the taxing ones. Then there's one on the parental rights one, and the other one, and then the third of three is coming out Monday or Tuesday of this week on this judicial review one, and then the last one a week from now will be on that last bucket. So that's where you can get more information, by the way. So this one, what I can say is, here's where I go. First of all, my number one question that I called Senator Huffman's office and said, the language on the ballot says required. The judges will be required to deny bail. And I said, but I'm also hearing other things. And she clarified. She said, the language does say required, but judges do have the option to set bail but they just will be required to write a statement saying so that will be included in the court record. So you know how sometimes you say, well, I want people to have to opt in, and they go, no, I want people to be able to opt out. Well, this now is that you have to opt out of bail. I mean, opt in to bail. It's going to be no bail for these certain crimes. And when I was watching the hearings, there were just a number of very sad, tragic stories of people who were murdered or were murdered or raped or whatever by people who were out on bail. So naturally, these families have advocated, why, how could this have happened? Okay, so of course your hearts go, well, yeah, let's keep them off the streets until their trial. Well, then that brings up individual rights. Well, aren't people innocent until proven guilty? And what about who are those people that are going to be likely to be accused of these crimes, And so there's a very difficult challenge, yeah. And who profits? Okay, I like the way you think, because then you got to look at one of the governor's main priorities was bail reform, and this is our follow the money guy, right? You can't always follow the money and get another side of the issue, right? Thank you for looking deeper into that. So there's that one, and prison industrial complex. Now walk us through that, because I don't really understand all that. I want you to explain.
So there's a prison industrial complex that's in Texas. So if they're not in prison, then it doesn't cost us $35,000 a year per person. So, and you understand, most of these prisons are now contractors, that we don't elect the boards or any of the provisions. These legislative members, whom, by the way, can take $1 million from anybody, and it's completely legal as long as they put it on their campaign finance report. Those guys get to make the laws that these contractors have to abide by, or the lack of laws that they have to abide by. So what that one is you've got a giveaway because they have to opt out. And what's really interesting about that is the judge is now on the record for why, which brings you to the next one, where they're like, oh, now we're going to set up a commission to review all these judges. You did too many bails. So now they're on the record for opting out. Now, let's say something terrible does happen and that person goes out and gets into a fight with his wife and something terrible happens, or vice versa. So the judge is now going to be reviewed by this commission, which she's going to talk about in a little while, which the vast majority will be appointed by. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. Yes, Marilee. Oh, hold on. 15 minutes. Thank you. Hang on, let me get there.
7 citizens that the governor appoints and 6 judges. So you have 7 people like me who know nothing about the law, but maybe I have a political agenda that happens to agree with the governor, but then those 7 people have the majority. And so there's like the risk of voting for
Okay.
thinking that all of a sudden we're gonna get complaints and
Yeah, so that, I'm glad you spoke to that one of the board makeup. There was a whole thing in the legislative session about judicial review, and a lot of work, and that I cannot even begin to go into now. But these are part and parcel of a lot of issues. Again, they'll be touched on in the Substack article, but here's what I really want you to note in the Substack article is a clip of Joe Moody, Representative Joe Moody, saying why he's voting for the bail thing. He essentially said, we've come a long way from the very first iteration of that bill to what it ended up being. He's not at all convinced that we've gotten there yet, but it will address some of those issues that have been brought up. So yes, is the prison industrial complex going to get money on this? Apparently so, yes. And might it keep some violent criminals from repeat offending? Maybe so. So what? Do we want to not, do we want to keep the money out of their pockets of the prison so much that we're willing to risk? And maybe the answer is yes, because it's a whole part of a rotten cycle. Or do we want to say, well, I know there's some bad things that are happening because of this, and are we willing to take this one step? Again, and then that goes back to that question of, well, why do we need it in the Constitution?
This is
Okay,
a very ambiguous worded.
Is there somebody saying something? Okay. Does he want to ask a question?
Well, it's very.
Have him type it, because we can't hear you. We can't hear what you're saying. So if you would type it out, we'll read it. Yes, ma'am.
My suspicion of this is, like you said in the beginning, there's these examples of horrible people getting out of prison, but it's kind of like, are there really 10 billion criminal illegal aliens, or are there really only 5
Yeah,
examples
exactly.
of the bad side of this, and the rules don't need to be tightened because most violent criminals
Right.
don't get bailed.
In that case, it's a risk you're willing to take, is what, it could be. Right. It's all a weight thing. Yes, ma'am.
Texas has existed wars since 1877, I believe, under our current constitution, where we do get bail. Now, the judge.
We do get bail.
We do get bail.
Yeah, bail. Okay. Uh-huh.
Now, has it been a huge problem for us in terms of safety? Heck, no, probably, like she said, that is being a problem as being attacked by criminal and illegal aliens.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we worked just fine for 150 years without requiring bail for anything. We can set the bail where the judge can set the bail wherever he wants. He can set it at $3 billion. That's enough under the Texas Constitution.
Yeah.
Bail has been set.
So, yes, thank you for that.
someone online was saying that it's problematic that the working documents that support this amendment don't define what certain offenses are.
Well, they're actually read in the clip that we're going to post in the Substack article. Representative guy from West Texas, the Panhandle, Smithy, reads out what those offenses are. Now, whether that was on the third reading, so I think it is spelled out. Yeah, I can't remember what they all are, but okay. So we got to move on to the last category, which is. Oh, it must have been before. Hang on. Yeah, where was it? Did I pass it? That's not it. Oh, let's just use our piece of paper for this one. Okay, in the interest of time, we're talking about the 15 and 16. The constitutional amendment affirming that parents are the primary decision makers for their children, and the constitutional amendment clarifying that a voter must be a United States citizen. Yeah, there you go. These are the United States citizen one. It's already a law. What's the point of making it a constitutional amendment? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I am very concerned about the parental rights proposition. A lot of you probably know that that's pretty coded language for conservative ideology. And it's a term that I see popping up. I have, my twins are age 2, so I look at lots of parenting content on social media and online. And that language tends to pop up in conversations around public education, public libraries, as a way for parents to opt their children out of things, restrict their access to information. And I just very passionately believe that children deserve health care, they deserve access to public education, and they deserve age-appropriate levels of privacy, even if their parents don't think they should have those things. So if we think that children are people, then they should have some rights, and we don't need a constitutional amendment that would prevent us from having legislation in the future that would protect children even from their parents when that is necessary.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you. Wait, thank you for that. And I just want to, I'll go right back to you. That is exactly what we're hearing. My colleague Grace was saying that just yesterday at a meeting we were speaking to about, we're hearing that language in all areas around public education, and that is a little red flag. Okay, yeah. It's also about vaccinations and gender affirming care, perhaps, and other, yes, ma'am.
Texas already has very clear laws about the rights of parents with respect to their children, and in the absence of a natural parent, then whoever is the guardian, whoever has conservatorship of your child. It's all spelled out in the law.
It's already all spelled out in the law. That's what she's saying. It's already all spelled out. And that, the Substack article to look for on that one is called, Yeah, but what's it really saying? Something like that. So just this one, you can take a healthy dose of skepticism too as well. It's like, yeah, but wait, why do we need this? We'll go to Texas Impact, and this one is called Yeah, but well, look for my name, Rebecca McElwain, in the last couple of months. So that's really what I've been writing about. Oh, thank you. Yes. See, it takes a village to do this, doesn't it? Okay, here we go. The third one, the second one over here, Texas Substack, subscribe to that. If you look for anything with my name, Rebecca McElwain, that'll be either about these, for the last 6 weeks or so, and before that on redistricting. So all about voting. The first top one is we've got this thing on Texas Impact's website, the Action Center, that has a little bit more information, pretty much a lot of what we covered today. And then that TLO that I was telling you about, Texas Legislature Online, bookmark it. Because when you start doing your research, that's what you want to, it's just wonderful. I love our state's website there. It's really great. Thank you, Kathy, for that. So scan it, bookmark, and refer often. Okay. There's something that you were saying that made me think I wanted to say something else about that. It's everywhere. Yeah, it's not coming back to me, but maybe it will. Yes, ma'am.
What about 16, where you have to be a U.S. citizen?
Yes, that again is already the law.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Can you repeat it?
the amendment that the clarifying that a voter must be the U.S. citizen. Okay, here's what I've read about that. So there are, in California and other places, local entities that will say on different specific referendums around their city, let non-citizens vote who are residents of the city because it impacts the whole, members. We don't do that here. If this passes, we will they'll never do that here. So this one's aimed at Harris County and Austin and all those blue cities Dallas, that could maybe get some big ideas about letting permanent residents or legal residents vote on things locally. So that's that one. I tell you, it's all really about a power grab from local to state. And one of my favorite horrifying video clips that I put in one of the Substack articles recently was what's his name? The Deer Park guy, Kane, Briscoe Kane, talking to John Busey, who's just great, in an elections committee, saying when Busey, the conversation was around outlawing ranked choice voting, which Google it if you don't know what that is. It's a really interesting idea. And Busey, who was on the committee, was challenging Kane about it, and he said, "Are you saying that local Deer Park residents shouldn't have do you believe in local control?" And Kane said, "No, I do not." And he said, "You're saying that the citizens of Deer Park shouldn't have the right to set this up as a cost-saving measure for their elections if they want to?" "No, I do not. They elected me to come here, and cities are creatures of the state." That was the phrase he used. I know, that was my reaction. Like, ugh. I mean, wasn't this the party that was like local control all the way? To a point. Yeah, exactly, to a point. Anyway, that's the kind of that's the kind of thing that we're looking at here. I do want to talk a little bit about moving forward, like what do you do now? Because I mean, I've got you all in this room and it's awesome. There is a group here in North Texas called North Texas Faith Votes. We meet on Zoom every 2 weeks, and we talk about things election and voting. Because folks, so far, we've still got this opportunity. No matter what they do on any number of levels, we still have the opportunity to vote. And we want to preserve and maintain and protect like hell this right to vote. And there are arrows and attacks coming all the time around this, as you all well know. And so it would really be lovely to have someone from St. Paul's and someone, or maybe we already do, but anyway, yes, you do. But someone more communities, more people who are thinking about this together. So just for the sake of simplicity, just write down my email address, which is Rebecca, Rebecca, let me see if I have, at Texas Impact, all spelled out, TEXAS Impact, IMPACT.org. And let me know if you'd like to join, even if you just want to be added to the listserv or the Google group. That you don't have to show up for meetings anyway, you can just get the information that way. We'd love to have your participation. Whether or not your church ever even comes on board, we'd love to have you. Lastly, this is a very important QR code. Arapaho has a ballot-ready code. If you want good information, now I'm not saying it's going to be all that great for the November 4th election, but once we get close to the primaries, and certainly November 26th, you'll want to bookmark this site as well. In the meantime, you can check your voter registration here, so you just go in and type in your info, and they can tell you if you're registered, if your voter registration's current. That's always a good thing to do. And I guess if we got 1 minute, let me just then wrap up by saying thank you for your interest and your passion and your wisdom and your knowledge and your digging and your questions and your everything, because this is all grist for the democratic process, right? We need all of this, and for showing up, and for Arapaho for hosting it. This has just been amazing, so thank you.
Now you see why we love Rebecca and we love Texas Impact, what the work they do, the information they provide. And I want to encourage you two things. If you support this and this type of information and the way that it's distributed for all different kinds of issues, I want to encourage you to go to the Texas Impact site and become a member, number one. And there is also a tab for the Texas Impact Foundation. Is that what it is? It's a Texas Impact something foundation where you can donate money beyond your membership. That if you appreciated this today, just consider making a donation so that they can continue to perpetrate and to communicate a lot of these issues around the state. This was recorded and will be distributed, so thank you for the engagement. I would appreciate if there are some people who can help us put up tables and things like that after we're done. Probably about 5 people would do it if you have the energy and the time. So thank you for being here. God bless you in the many names in which God is named.